Just a seemingly regular house that a horrific event happened in. Okay everybody, this is mooneydashcam. Tonight we're in Massapequa, Long Island. We're going to be talking about a man who suddenly one night snapped, stabbing his wife, who he recently separated with, and his current girlfriend pretty much to death, leaving them to bleed out as he went and hung himself right after. We're going to be going to the house that it happened, so let's flip this around and get into it. The address that we're going to is 200 North Manhattan Avenue, like I said, in Massapequa. This incident happened in March of 2022, so earlier this year. It's pretty terrible. There is a name that's not mentioned that I did have, but I'm not going to release because there's no reason to put it out there if it's not mentioned in any articles anywhere publicly. The person we're focusing on today is 34-year-old Vincent Maiolica. Vincent was a poker player who played in the World Series of Poker a couple of times. No crazy winnings or anything like that. His total lifetime winnings were $27,000. That's in tournaments. I don't know if there's anything past that. I'm not that big into poker. Some of you may know more than I do. He lived a seemingly normal life. At this time, he was separated from his wife, 29-year-old Irene Spantopanagos. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. At the time, they have a 17-month-old daughter, Alessia. And he had a new relationship with a 22-year-old girl. And his ex-wife and the new girlfriend got along very well, from what I understand. I'm going to run you down the events of that night. Then I'm going to give you my reasoning to why I think it happened, my theory. There is still, to this day, not a clear reason why this all happened. Maybe there's more of a reason privately, but it's not publicly out there. So, he's at 200 West Manhattan Avenue on a Saturday night at 7 p.m., March 12th, 2022, when he snaps. The story I heard in the moment, because I do know a few people who knew some people that were involved in this, he came from the other room with a knife. That's not confirmed, that's just what I heard. So he pops out from another room with a knife and turns to his separated wife and his new girlfriend and starts stabbing them. And not just a few times, he stabs them a lot. I'm not sure where the daughter was at this time. I do remember hearing she was in the house, but nothing I read re-mentioned that she was in the house, so that's just the information that I know. He then leaves both girls to suffer and bleed out while he goes and attempts to hang himself. While this is happening, a neighboring Ring doorbell camera catches the girls' screams and one of them coming outside and actually asking for help. She sits down on the stoop and she's explaining to the neighbor that she can't breathe and he needs to call 911. It's a pretty horrific audio to this video. You don't see anything, but just from what's explained by the neighbor's accounts and the audio from the video, it sounds pretty horrible.
In this Ring video given to us by a neighbor, you can hear the screaming and cries for help.
Girl across the street was sitting on her porch and she's like, help me, I can't breathe, I've been stabbed.
So police and ambulance get there minutes later and show up to this bloody massacre. I have no idea what just went on. I don't think it was clear what went on for a little while after, but they grab all three of them and take them all to a nearby hospital. Irene, the wife and the mother of Alessia, died early the next morning. Vincent died the day after that on March 14th, and the 22-year-old was in bad critical condition. But I believe, there's no information out there, but from what I understand, she's the only survivor of this situation, which thank God at least someone survived, but I'm sure that's a horrible thing to, and not I'm sure, I know for a fact that's a horrible thing to go through. I don't know how she deals with that day to day. A GoFundMe was set up for Irene and her daughter that raised $40,000 in 2 days. So the neighborhood really came together, and New York really came together to try and help the funeral costs and just care for Alessia since she's being displaced from her mother. The last number I saw that it was at was $73,000. I'm sure that it went higher than that because the initial limit was $50,000 and they moved it to $100,000 when it passed that. Now, the big question of this case is the motive. It is not clear why he did this. He randomly snapped one day. It doesn't make sense to anybody. And since he died, there was no real investigation that went on. So no answers are out there, at least publicly, like I mentioned before. Now, the theory I have is that it has something to do with severe head trauma. February 22nd, 2013, he leaves a Brooklyn nightclub on 3rd Avenue called, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Nouveau. Him and his buddy sees a group of young men, he said maybe around 18 years old, having some kind of argument. So he steps in saying, why don't you just chill out and enjoy yourselves? I think attempting to be a nice guy and just calming the situation, not really the best to get involved in a group of teenagers' issues late at night. I'm assuming it's late at night, they're leaving this bar. And in quotes, he goes, I'm not the sort of person to start things with people, when he spoke to an interviewer. We are right around the corner from this house. So that night, they turn to their car, and one of the younger guys that was in an argument runs up on Vincent and hits him in the back of the head with something, knocking him unconscious, falling flat on his face. Alright, let me pull up and park right here so I'm not anyone's way. I don't know if anyone lives at this house currently, but we'll find out. I see a for sale sign on the lawn of this house, so I have a feeling that nobody lives there currently. Is that my truck making that belt noise? Say hi to it, by the way. Look, it stopped. It got shy. Okay. So this house right across the street is where this all went down. This horrible incident, and I believe this house was the one that caught the Ring camera footage, the audio. Terrible. I'll show this house with crime scene tape all around it. It's a pretty messed up situation. The lady just opened the door to the house right across the street, right as I'm walking by. Always love that. Okay, so like I was saying, he is smashed on the back of the skull with who knows what. He has no memory of what happened. His friends told him that he was lying there for minutes before they realized that he was down because the friend was walking ahead of him. So by the time he looked back, it was already a couple minutes, which not the greatest friend in the world, let's be honest there. And he refused to go to the hospital that night that it happened. So he went home and slept, woke up to a bloody pillow and a splitting headache. This is the house that this all happened at. I'm guessing nobody lives here now. Oh, under contract. This definitely has to be disclosed of what happened here when you buy it. I would assume, yes, definitely, actually, since someone died here. Just a seemingly regular house that a horrific event happened in. Totally normal neighborhood. Massapequa was a nice neighborhood. Not that the neighborhood has to do with a crime of this nature, but it's worth mentioning. Let's get a better look at the truck real quick. There we go. Oh, what, did I run over a bottle or something? That's fun. So, the morning he wakes up with that bloody pillow, he goes to the hospital, he goes to Nassau University Medical Center and gets checked out. The doctor said he was hit in the back of the head with some kind of metal object. Of course, I don't know exactly what it was. He had a fractured skull and his brain was bleeding. He spent 8 days in the hospital. He almost died. And he spent 3 weeks out of work over this incident. Only ended up filing a police report because one of his friends told him he had to. And he didn't want to pay all the medical costs because, of course, this is not his fault. Someone else should be paying for that. He goes, I don't want to sue anybody. I just don't want to pay the medical costs. Makes sense. The reason I possibly attribute this to head trauma is because when people have a traumatic brain injury, their behavior becomes more erratic. They are more likely to make risky decisions. They're more likely to have suicidal tendencies. Their whole personality can change. Your whole personality can change from being knocked out by a punch. Any type of head injury could totally change your personality and totally change you into a person that would do something that you never would normally do. You hear about all these NFL players and these combat sports guys, UFC and boxing, always in domestic abuse situations, always in a road race situation. This is not a coincidence. They have head trauma and it leads them to this type of behavior. I'm not going to say this type of behavior should be excused because of the head trauma, of course not. But maybe it gives a little bit of a reason as to possibly why this all happened. So people don't have to sit here and wonder and just be confused by it, which you still wonder and you're still going to be confused by it. It's not like I'm giving you guys any groundbreaking information here, but that's my take on possibly why this happened. I could be 100% wrong. There might be a story that I don't know about that is kept under wraps, that wasn't put out to the public because there's no need to put it out to the public because it wasn't investigated as a regular court case since he died, like I said. So that's pretty much everything I have to tell you about the situation. What I also found that was a weird coincidence was that when he filed a police report in 2013 after having his skull fractured, it was March 14th, and then he died on March 14th. Just thought that was a weird little tidbit in this story. I hope you enjoyed. I know it's a terrible one. I will see you guys in the next one.